What is up, Frickos and Frigettes, and welcome back to the Arctic. Now, I'm not going to do some sort of long, intense, complicated intro for this video, because this video and the video that I uploaded before this video were originally supposed to be one video. And since I already introduced the movie in that video, why don't you go ahead and give that one a watch here. And if you already watched that one, then hold tight. I'm just going to real quick show the last 15 seconds of it so we can get right back into our movie review of Battlefield Earth. And they're taken back and put to work taking down an overhang that Travolta had banged his head on previously. See, that probably wouldn't be much of a problem if they just didn't wear the goddamn stilts. Right, so while the other humans are put to work clobbering away at some architect's mistake, Johnny is taken into another room by Travolta. Now, I need you guys to remember, right, that Johnny is the main protagonist and Travolta is the main antagonist. Right, the way those two archetypes are supposed to interact, they're supposed to be adverse to one another. They're supposed to duke things out, you know, mentally, physically, verbally. But Travolta? The only thing he's antagonizing is every poor soul who has to watch this godforsaken movie. Because time and time again, Travolta is shaping up to be more of an ally than an antagonist. First, he gave our main protagonist a gun, and now he strapped him into a machine that literally just teaches him things about cyclos and pretty much everything else. Oh yeah, you really got him, Travolta. Way to be a villain. While the machine is humming away and Johnny is growing smarter and smarter by the second, Forrest Whitaker's character and Travolta just up and leave. That is the equivalent of if Darth Vader had hand-delivered the blueprints to the Death Star to the Rebel Alliance, and then just turned around and left. That is the equivalent to if Achilles had gone up to his opponents before a battle and been like, hey, if you want to kill me, all you gotta do is hit me in the ankle, and then turn around and left. If you're still not getting the picture, essentially, Travolta gave Johnny a 24-inch horsecock, bent over and spread his chocolate starfish, and then thought to himself, nothing I'm doing could possibly lead to 24 inches of silicone and paint up my butt. Travolta is the world's worst villain. Time and time again, he's just making things so much easier for our protagonist. Like, there is no way Johnny could beat Travolta if Travolta just stopped what he was doing. If Travolta just stopped what he was doing and let Johnny play himself out, Travolta would annihilate him. Alas, Travolta is about as dumb as a sack of bricks, and further proving this point, now that Johnny knows how to speak Cyclo, he hacks into some complex alien terminal and steals a bunch of guns. Now, you would think that a laser beam that can teach you a whole nother language, how to use and hack an alien terminal, and teach you molecular biology.
See, I learned something called molecular biology. This is the symbol for water.
Would also teach you that guns need ammo. Alas, you would be wrong, because apparently this laser doesn't teach you things that would inconvenience the plot. Johnny and his crew attempt to ambush Travolta and Whitaker, and their ambush fails because their guns weren't loaded, and an unloaded gun is about as useful as an ejector seat in a helicopter or an umbrella in a tsunami. So, what does Travolta do? Now, keep in mind that at this point, Johnny has killed another Cyclo, he has tried to escape multiple times, he stole Travolta's guns, and then he just tried to kill him with aforementioned stolen guns. What does Travolta do? Simple. He takes him to a goddamn library so he can learn even more things. Travolta's rationale here was that he wanted to show Johnny all of the information and history that humans had had, to prove to Johnny that there was nothing he could do to get a jump on him, because even with all of that information and history at their disposal,
when we attacked your planet, all your soldiers and all their advanced technology could only put up a measly 9-minute fight.
Now, there are two things that Travolta failed to take into account. First, mankind perished in just 9 minutes, even with all of that information, because they knew nothing about Cyclos. Johnny, on the other hand, knows everything about Cyclos, because you just beamed it into his head, Travolta. So now, Johnny's going to know everything about Cyclos and everything about humans. He is slowly but surely creating the only weapon that could destroy him, and not even by a slim margin of victory. I'm talking absolutely obliterate Travolta along with the rest of his bloodline. The second thing Travolta failed to take into account with his "there's nothing you could do to possibly get a jump on me" assertion was Walmart brand Ewok Ex Machina. Just roll the clip. So I am glad, right? I'm glad to see Travolta finally being taken down by somebody that isn't himself. But why? Why did it have to be random jungle people who we have never met, who look like they just got out of a Smurf orgy? And the fact that these characteristics best describe the random group of peoples who just showed up makes this next scene even wilder. So when Travolta gets steamrolled, he drops his gun. Johnny does some sick parkour and picks up said gun and aims it at his head. And it's at this point that we get the only reasonable dialogue in this entire film. And it wasn't even really dialogue, it was just background noise. Some dude somewhere yells, "Shoot up!" And what does Johnny do? He gives a minute-long speech, and in this 60 seconds, okay, actually it was less than 60 seconds, in less than 60 seconds, he rallies this entire group of people we have never met before, to wage war on the Cyclos with him. And they're just like, yeah, sure, that sounds swell. What? See, because these random jungle people have no idea that Johnny has any sort of advantage over the Cyclos, what with him knowing a bunch of things now. All they know is that the Cyclos have weapons that can literally vaporize them. And they have rocks and pointy sticks. Yet Johnny says some words for 60 seconds and they're like, sure, let's go to war. Anyway, the forest people scurry back into the woods, and Johnny, like the brilliant, smart, strong protagonist he is, gives Travolta his gun back. The character dynamic between these two is absolutely ridiculous. See, normally, the good guy is trying to outsmart the bad guy, and the bad guy is trying to outsmart the good guy. And the one who outsmarts the other the best is declared the winner. That's how stories typically work. But in this film, it's not about who is the smartest. The winner is going to be declared by who is the least stupid. This entire movie plays out like a chess game between Jake Paul and Lily Sings. Right, they're both incredibly dumb, but one of them has to luck into a victory eventually. Right, so after getting his gun back, Travolta immediately retakes control over the situation. What? I know, right? Who would have thunk it? Now, Travolta, he's starting to get the sense that Johnny isn't the most cooperative. But never fear, Travolta's got a plan to keep Johnny in check. And it is at this moment that an airship arrives from the skies, and out steps Whitaker and a prisoner with an explosive clamped around their neck. Now at first, I was a little bit confused as to why that would make Johnny do anything, but then I studied the prisoner's face a little bit more and it finally clicked. I was like, oh, that's Johnny's girlfriend. See, the reason it had slipped my mind is because she has had zero character development. In fact, this is the first time she's shown up outside of the first 30 seconds of the movie. See, the way that scene played out, it was clear that it was supposed to be some sort of big reveal that would make the audience gasp in shock and horror. But it's kinda hard to draw that sort of reaction out of an audience when we have absolutely zero stock in any of the characters. And I'm sure I speak for all of us when I say that, frankly, I'd much rather that all of them had explosives clamped around their necks, set to go off the next time some stupid character does their goddamn evil laugh. Alright everybody, welcome back to another round of What Does Travolta Do? Just moments before, Johnny rallied a bunch of random jungle people to wage war against the Cyclos with him, making Johnny the head of potentially a very dangerous rebellion. And this is something he did in front of Travolta. So, what does Travolta do? If you guessed, teach Johnny how to fly an airship, and then leave Johnny and a bunch of other humans who have outwardly expressed allegiance to him, as well as a thirst for rebellion, to their own devices in a remote location for 2 weeks, you'd be correct. It looks like Travolta has finally outstupided Johnny. He's moving forward with his mining scheme, which, if you remember, is the whole reason he's doing any of this, and he leaves Johnny and a bunch of his man-animal friends over by the vein of gold that he once mined out. Now, the reason Travolta couldn't stay is because this area is heavily irradiated, and radiation reacts negatively with the Cyclo breathing masks.
This damn crap! This is as far as I can go!
Those are those little tubes you see stuck up their noses. Essentially, Cyclos can't breathe human air, and humans can't breathe Cyclo air. So humans wear those breathing masks when they're inside of the Cyclo complex, and Cyclos wear those breathing masks when they're outside of the complex. Now that we've got that poorly constructed lore that nobody cares about out of the way, we can get back into this poorly constructed movie that nobody cares about. Because Travolta can't take Johnny all the way to the gold vein because of all the radiation, he does the smartest thing that he's done all film. No! I'm kidding, don't worry. Travolta still makes exclusively stupid decisions. He leaves Johnny with a whole-ass airship, so that Johnny can fly the rest of the way to the gold vein without him. And he leaves behind a drone, a single drone that only records static images, mind you, behind to survey all of the man-animals. Now, obviously, a single drone that only records static images isn't going to do a very good job keeping tabs on all of the humans. But, let's say, hypothetically, let me pull up my notes real quick. Hypothetical notes. What if all of the humans left flew 1,661.7 miles to get to Washington, D.C. to look at some ruins for no reason, and then flew 635.7 miles to get to Fort Knox, where they discover the safe door is open, and all the gold is still there, which means that somehow, after inhabiting the Earth for 1,000 years, the Cyclos somehow managed to never stumble upon it. Anyway, still hypothetically, of course, say the humans then fill up their airship with all of the gold so that they don't have to spend their time actually mining, then fly 1,120.8 miles back to the mining site, assuming the mining site is still in the Denver area where the Cyclo complex is, and the drone captured absolutely none of it. You and I both know that wasn't a hypothetical. Oh my god, somebody wrote this and thought it didn't suck. Oh my god, this movie's awful! Anyway, Travolta comes back, and after seeing that they've already collected a bunch of gold, he cuts down their period of time from 2 weeks to 7 days. At the end of those 7 days is when they are going to revolt. Now, keep in mind that the Cyclos have the advantage in both numbers and technology. However, if they're all as dumb as Travolta is, then I guess I can see it being a fair fight. Alright, so here's their plan. They're gonna stage a revolt inside of the Cyclo complex, which will bring all of the Cyclos inside of the complex with them in an attempt to quell the rebellion. And once all of them are in, the humans are gonna blow the glass that surrounds the complex, and since the Cyclos don't have their breathing masks on when they're inside of their own complex, they will die because they can't breathe. And then they're gonna send some dude to blow up the entire Cyclo planet before they can send reinforcements. Let me remind you, they plan on figuring out how to do all of that in 7 days. Then again, during those 7 days, they can travel wherever they want because the security drone is just as good at keeping tabs on them as a baby wipe is at putting out a forest fire. They all hop in their airship and travel another 721 miles to another fort, this time in Texas, where they stock up on guns, explosives, and fighter jets. And wouldn't you know it, in just a week's time, they become experts in all of those things. Listen, it has taken me months to become mediocre at using editing software. Don't you dare tell me that in less than a week, these rat-brained troglodytes figured out how to fly fighter jets. Oh, and another thing, why is there still jet fuel on hand? Oh, and one more thing, after sitting stationary for 1,000 years, why do these jets still work? Anyway, while they're at that fort, they also find a nuke which they are going to use to blow up the cycloplanet. And remember, they only need one bomb because the radiation reacts negatively with cyclo-air, blah 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 blah, a bunch of poorly constructed lore to help convenience the plot. Whatever, I get it, and it's at this point that the movie transports us back to Travolta and Whitaker. Now, quick reminder, their little mining scheme is a secret project between the two of them, and if their superior found out what they were doing, they would be vaporized. So Whitaker takes advantage of this predicament and secretly records Travolta talking about the plan, and then uses said recording to blackmail Travolta for a lion's share of the gold.
I've been thinking, 80-20 is a pretty fair distribution of the gold.
Travolta responds by whipping out his gun and is all like, if I kill you, then there's no way that video's ever gonna get out. What's to stop me from doing it? But Whitaker's like, I made a copy of the video and gave it to a confidential informant. If you kill me, that video is going straight to your superior and you will be vaporized. And then Travolta's like, oh, do you mean this informant? And he whips out the bartender's head, and Whitaker's like, oh shit. Because that was the informant. Now, there's a lot to unpack here. First, how did Travolta find out who had the second tape and decapitate him all before it was even revealed that the first tape even existed? Second, why was the head there? How did Travolta know that Whitaker was going to blackmail him in that room at that time, let alone so far in advance that he had time to set up the decapitated head so he could whip it out at the end of Whitaker's confrontation? Anyway, Travolta shoots off Whitaker's hand, and apparently cyclos can't feel pain or something as Whitaker just stares at the stump like, ugh, gosh darn it, not again. And then the movie takes us back to the humans, who are starting their rebellion. Now, I'm assuming the guy who was editing this probably did a double take at around this point, because he looked at the footage and was like, oh shit, this movie is called Battlefield Earth, and there's only 10 minutes left, and they're only now just starting the battle. So, how did this editor get around this? Simple. He put the whole thing in slow motion to pad out the time. Oh my god, it's so bad! Anyway, some crappy acting, choppy cinematography, and some horrible CGI later, and we get our second Walmart brand Ewok Ex Machina. This time with fighter jets! Look, fighter jets are incredibly complex pieces of technology, but the cyclos squashed the human resistance in just 9 minutes when they invaded 1,000 years ago. So if fighter jets were obsolete against cyclo technology then, well, they're just 1,000 years more advanced now. The cyclo should squash them in 4.5 minutes. Alas, this movie's logic is about as coherent as MC Escher's staircase, and the jets start putting in work, blowing up things left and right. It's at this point that Travolta issues an order to exterminate humans at will.
Happy hunting!
Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty sure they were already shooting to kill. However, Travolta's fellow cyclos don't get very much time to act on those orders, because Curious George kamikazes into the roof of the complex. And the whole thing goes boom. Falling debris and broken infrastructure for everyone! See, the whole point of blowing up the perimeter was so that the oxygen would come rushing back in, so that the cyclos would perish since they can't breathe oxygen, but the humans would just be chilling since they could. But that? That is equally as fatal for everybody involved. Now, while this is happening, Johnny and Travolta are finally duking it out, toe-to-toe, finally acting like a protagonist and an antagonist. Unfortunately, this entire scene is filmed in this movie's signature slow motion, and framed with its famous Family Guy bootlegged framing. So, honestly, they could have just been passionately making out for all I could see. The only thing that really confirmed that it was a fight was the part when Johnny secured that explosive clamp to Travolta's arm mid-battle, and then tricked Travolta into blowing his own arm off because Travolta still thought the explosive was secured to the girl's neck, which in fact it was not because it was now on his arm. Duh. Anyway, with Travolta incapacitated, one of the humans hops inside of the little teleportation thing, beams himself over to the Cyclo world, and detonates the nuke, destroying the entire planet. The movie ends with Travolta imprisoned in Fort Knox and Whitaker on the human side now for some reason. I don't know. And now, after 2 hours of excruciating pain, 2 hours of me wanting to gouge my eyes out and put them back in just so I can gouge them out again, the credits finally roll. The relief I feel in my chest is indescribable. And before I let you guys go, there is one more bombshell I have yet to drop on you guys. That movie was only based on the first half of L. Ron Hubbard's book. Travolta really thought he was going to be able to make a sequel. If that doesn't prove that John Travolta is one of the most delusional people to have ever walked the earth, I don't know what does. I'll see you guys next weekend, Frickos and Forgets. Stay safe.